Hey, what is going on, everybody? Happy New Testament Tuesday. I'm so glad you're here. So excited to be with you. We're going to continue on in our series going through the Proverbs, looking at a proverb, and then looking to see who in the New Testament embodies that proverb well, or somebody who had spoke on it. So last week, I know if you're just a YouTube watcher only, you missed out on what it was. I was in this conference, so I wasn't able to film a video. I didn't have the foresight to be able to film it and then prep it for later, so I apologize. Last week's proverb from Old Testament Thursday comes from Proverbs chapter 22, verse 1. It says, "A good name is more desirable than riches, than great wealth." And so my question I'm going to pose to you today is, if you were to rank like your top 5 favorite people of all time, who would they be and why? Very rarely, and if this is you, I'm sorry, but very rarely we start naming people who are just rich, who are just famous. Usually, your top favorite people are people you have a relationship with, or people you find good qualities in that you're like, hey, this person is smart, this person's funny, this person's really good at this or really good at that. We oftentimes don't look at their wealths or their riches, and that's what gives them value, but rather it's their character that gives them value. It's their good name. It's their upstanding name, a desirable name, such as Proverbs chapter 22 says. So what does this mean for us today? Well, we'll be in Galatians chapter 5 and verse 13. "You, my brothers and sisters, were called to be free, but do not use your freedom to indulge the flesh. Rather, serve one another humbly in love, for the entire law is fulfilled in keeping this one command: love your neighbor as yourself. If you bite and devour each other, watch out, or you will destroy one another." We'll pause there. Paul here is writing to the Galatians, and what he's saying is serve one another humbly, serve one another in love rather than destroying each other. You have freedom in the Spirit. The Spirit of God gives you freedom, but don't use that freedom to indulge yourself in the flesh. Now, picture it this way. Our culture wants you to get a lot of money. We all want to be rich. Rich, 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 rich. That's what we want, right? We want to have lots of money. We can be financially free. This all ties into our series of You, Your Money, and God. So make sure you tune into our Facebook Live, tune in person, be there in person. Anyways, so what we're talking about is culture wants you to have all this money so you can buy whatever you want, right? That sounds a whole lot like indulging your flesh. Are you using what you have to get pleasure, to have your fancy boat or your fancy car, all these different things? Or are you serving one another humbly? Are you loving people as yourself? Are you creating, what I'm getting at is, are you creating a desirable name for yourself? Oftentimes, again, we don't remember people by their money. We remember them for their deeds, their actions, their character, what they have said and what they've done for the sake of others. So let's continue on. Verse 16. "So I say, walk by the Spirit, and you will not gratify the desires of the flesh. For the flesh desires what is contrary to the Spirit, and the Spirit what is contrary to the flesh. They are in conflict with each other, so that you are not to do whatever you want. But if you are led by the Spirit, you are not under the law." So the New Testament way of saying, a desirable name is more valuable than wealth. Now it's kind of progressed. The Bible is saying, what the Spirit is speaking through Paul is, it is more desirable to follow the Spirit than it is to indulge in the flesh. Why? Because, well, if we are following God, perfect, great. We want to follow God. We don't want to follow our heart. We don't want to follow our own desires. We don't want to indulge the flesh, because that brings about death spiritually. We want spiritual life, eternal life spiritually, so that we can have worship with our God in the heavens. How we do that is we follow the Spirit. How do you know if you are following the Spirit? How do you know if you're creating yourself a desirable name? Well, check out the last few verses, 22 through 26. It says, "But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, forbearance, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Against such things there is no law. Those who belong to Christ have crucified the flesh with its passions and desires. Since we live by the Spirit, Let us keep in step with the Spirit. Let us not become conceited, provoking, and envying of each other. What does this all have to do with you today? Desire yourself a good name, one that comes from serving God, one that comes from following the Spirit. How do you know if you're doing those things? Do you have love? Do you have joy? Do you have peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control? If you do, you're on the right track. But if you're not, hey, we got some work to do. I'm Pastor Adam. This has been New Testament Tuesday. I'll see you next time.